All right, today we are diving into the world of three really important amino acids: histidine, proline, and arginine. Now, I know for your exams, these probably feel like just three separate topics you have to memorize, but they're actually beautifully and, well, really efficiently interconnected. And understanding these connections, that's the real key to mastering amino acid metabolism and seeing the bigger picture. So let's start with a big question. Are histidine, proline, and arginine actually linked up metabolically? The answer is a huge yes. This isn't just a random collection of pathways. It's this incredibly elegant system where three different roads all lead to one critical destination. So our job today is to uncover this central hub and figure out why it's so vital for how our bodies work. So here's our game plan. We're going to start by revealing that central hub, which is glutamate. Then we'll take a look at each of the three spokes of this metabolic wheel: histidine's journey, proline's really unique cycle, and the many, many roles of arginine. And then we'll wrap it all up by connecting it to the high-yield clinical clues that you absolutely need to know. Okay, let's jump right in. The central hub, you could say the hero of our story today, is the amino acid glutamate. I want you to think of it like the grand central station of amino acid metabolism. It's the one molecule that links all these seemingly separate pathways into one single coherent network. So what exactly does glutamate do? Well, it acts as a sort of collection center for amino groups. As other amino acids get broken down, their nitrogen often gets funneled right to glutamate. This makes it a super critical intermediate, not just for connecting these three amino acids, but also for providing a direct on-ramp to the TCA cycle for energy. It's all about metabolic flexibility. And this right here perfectly lays out our main concept. Histidine, through its breakdown pathway, becomes glutamate. Proline can be oxidized to form glutamate. And arginine, through the urea cycle, makes ornithine, which then gets converted into, you guessed it, glutamate. See? Three different starting points, all leading to one common destination. This is metabolic efficiency at its absolute best. So let's move on to our first spoke and see this whole thing in action. Starting with histidine. This amino acid leads a really fascinating double life. One path leads to energy, and the other leads to a molecule we are all very familiar with, especially around allergy season. The main breakdown pathway for histidine is pretty much a four-step process. It all starts with deamination by an enzyme called histidase, which is really just a fancy way of saying an amino group gets removed. After a couple of intermediate steps, including making this very important molecule called FIGLU, we get to the final step. And here, FIGLU donates a group to tetrahydrofolate, or THF, finally giving us our central hub, glutamate. Now here is the absolutely crucial clinical point. That last step requires THF, which comes from the vitamin folate. So if a patient is deficient in folate, that reaction gets blocked. It creates a sort of metabolic traffic jam, and that causes FIGLU to build up and spill out into the urine. This is just a brilliant example of how a simple urine test for FIGLU can be a key diagnostic tool for folate deficiency. So as we've seen, histidine has two possible fates. It can go down the catabolic pathway to make glutamate for energy, or through a simple decarboxylation reaction, which is just snipping off a carboxyl group, it's converted into histamine. And that is the powerful amine involved in everything from secreting gastric acid to the allergic reactions that cause your runny nose and itchy eyes. All right, let's move on to our second amino acid, proline. What makes proline's connection to glutamate so unique isn't just that it leads there, but that the path is actually a two-way street. It's a completely reversible cycle that gives the cell some incredible adaptability. So when the body needs to break down proline, it gets oxidized through an intermediate called P5C to form glutamate. Simple enough. But here's the clever part. The body can also run this whole pathway in reverse. It can take glutamate and actually synthesize proline. This reversibility is just crucial for making this non-essential amino acid whenever it's needed for things like, say, collagen synthesis. And when is proline most needed? Well, one of its biggest roles is in making collagen, which is the most abundant protein in our bodies. For collagen to be strong and stable, its proline residues have to be hydroxylated, and that reaction absolutely requires vitamin C. So without enough vitamin C, you get defective collagen, and that leads to the bleeding gums and poor wound healing that you see in scurvy. Let's move to our final spoke, arginine. Arginine is a true metabolic powerhouse. Its story isn't just about getting to glutamate. It's also about being the starting point for some of the most important molecules in our entire body. So, arginine's link to glutamate starts in the urea cycle. The enzyme arginase cleaves arginine, which releases urea and leaves behind ornithine. From there, ornithine undergoes transamination, a reaction that swaps its amino group, and it becomes glutamate semialdehyde. And that's the exact same intermediate we saw in the proline pathway, which then leads directly to glutamate. See how it all connects? This slide just beautifully illustrates how versatile arginine is. I mean, beyond the urea cycle, it serves as the precursor for creatine. That's the high-energy phosphate storage molecule in your muscles. It's the source of polyamines for cell growth. And incredibly, it's the sole precursor for the vital signaling molecule nitric oxide. You know, the discovery that nitric oxide, a simple gas, was this endymium-derived releasing factor was absolutely revolutionary. Produced from arginine, NO acts as a potent vasodilator, relaxing blood vessels to regulate blood flow and blood pressure. It's a fundamental molecule for cardiovascular health, and it all starts with a single amino acid. Okay, let's bring it all home. We're going to summarize the key takeaways and connect these pathways directly to clinical pathology, because this is where the biochemistry truly becomes medicine. This table right here is your high-yield summary. For histidine, remember, a folate deficiency blocks its breakdown, causing FIGLU to show up in the urine, a key diagnostic marker. For proline, a vitamin C deficiency means it can't be properly modified for collagen, leading to the structural failures we see in scurvy. And for arginine, problems in its metabolism, like urea cycle defects, can cause a dangerous buildup of ammonia. That's hyperammonemia, and it leads to some really serious neurological symptoms. And hey, if you remember just one thing from this whole explainer, make it this simple mnemonic. His pro-arg path meets at GLU. Histidine, proline, and arginine all converge on glutamate. It's a really simple way to lock in this central concept. All right, time for a quick quiz. First question. Which compound piles up in the urine in a patient with folate deficiency? The answer is forminoglutamic acid, or FIGLU, right? Because that final folate-dependent step in histidine breakdown gets blocked. Okay, question 2. What's the common intermediate connecting both proline and arginine back to glutamate? The answer is glutamate semialdehyde. It's the key junction that links both of those pathways to our central hub. And our final question. In the urea cycle, which enzyme is responsible for converting arginine into urea and ornithine? That would be arginase. It's the enzyme that completes the cycle and releases the waste product, urea. So let's close with a final thought. Now that you know these connections, think about this. How might a single nutritional deficiency, like a lack of folate or vitamin C, ripple through multiple, seemingly unrelated body systems? You can really start to see how a problem with one tiny molecule can affect everything from energy production and heart health to the actual integrity of our connective tissues. It really is all connected. Thanks for joining me.